Hello, this is a video response to The Peach, the video Prostitution Part 3. The main point I want to try to pull out, well, there's several related points actually. I mean, the first thing is, and I'm going to revolve this around my content, because in this video, Peach, you use probably about 15 seconds of my content, which along with a number of other people, and I wouldn't wish to speak for anyone else, of course, you've treated with some kind of grainy filter, I don't know, for aesthetic effect, I guess. Interesting choice. Several things about that. Firstly, it would have been polite for you to ask permission to use content. That is the kind of standard practice, I think, even in the wild west of YouTube. People do ask one another before they use their content. Of course, I would have said yes and would have had no problem with that at all, regardless of what you've done with it. But it would have been polite to ask. Secondly, what you've done with that content and why you chose that particular 15 seconds. I've got probably about 150 hours of video on YouTube of different topics, probably about 6 hours in total on something to do with gender politics, of which probably 2 hours is about pornography, a couple of hours about feminist epistemology, and probably an hour and a half, something like that, on prostitution and sex work. And the 15 seconds you've chosen there, Peach, is probably the least representative of anything I have ever said on YouTube. And you've used it specifically to support an argument which I have never ever made, would never make, and would avoid participating in. In other words, what you've done there is you've cherry-picked, Peach, cherry-picked, quite dramatically. And that's, I mean, I don't know whether you consider yourself a member of the atheist community here on YouTube, but cherry picking is something that we don't do because it's unrepresentative and it's kind of cheating, really. It's intellectually bankrupt practice. But that's effectively what you've done there. And as I say, you've cherry picked that small section of footage of me, I think for a variety of effects. Partly it's because it's that piece of footage in which, certainly the way you've used it, sounds the most inflammatory and sounds the most, and you've edited it to make it sound most like this, sounds the most derogatory. You've also included within that footage a quotation, which in my original video I attributed to a source, but you've cut off the attribution, so you've made it sound as if it's my views, and as I say, I was quoting someone else, and would not support the views expressed by that person. But because you've cut off the attribution, it makes it sound like I do. Yeah. So there's a few problems there. I mean, the slightly larger problem is and I'm going to relate it specifically to the clips of me that you've used, is that you've used it to support a position which, quite honestly, is not only not representative of my position, but I don't think it's even representative of your position, or representing a debate that you would really want to participate in, because it's insane. You seem to have, in this video and elsewhere, set this discussion up as if it's a polarity between people who are pro and anti-sex industry. You've placed yourself on a side which I guess is pro-sex industry, and you've placed a number of people, including myself, which I resent, I have to say, on the side of anti-sex industry. And as I said earlier, I've cherry-picked a few seconds of footage to make it seem as if that's a place where I would belong. But that whole discussion is dysfunctional. I mean, certainly from my perspective, I would resist a position anywhere in that binary. That binary doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense for a number of reasons. I mean, the logic of this discussion it's worse than kindergarten. I mean, it seems to be a discussion about whether prostitution should be legal or not. I mean, that's what it's bound to. That's what you're getting down to. Prostitution should be... Look at the comments underneath your video page. It's all, yeah, prostitution should be legal. And by inference that people on the other side are saying prostitution should be illegal. But no one's saying that. As I've said in my video, several of my videos, prostitution is legal where I live. It is legal to be a prostitute in the UK. It is legal in parts of where you live, Nevada specifically, as you mentioned yourself, to be a prostitute. It's legal in many parts of Europe. It's legal in Australia. There's lots of parts of the world in which it's legal. It is controlled and could probably be regulated in different ways, and there's lots of details that need working out for sure, and there's lots of really good videos that could be made about those individual details, those will be really valuable. But pretending this is this discussion about legality and illegality in the most general sense, and then allocating individuals to one or another side of a boundary that you yourself have created, is intellectually dishonest. It really is. And I'm very unhappy about being placed within an argument that I have no reason to be within. In fact, if you've looked at my video, any of my videos, you say you've downloaded 50 of them and looked through them, I'd have to assume that some of those are mine. If you look through those videos, or you've looked at any other of my videos, you'll know that one of the things that I am very interested in, and kind of politically behind, is the avoidance of simple answers to complex questions. That's one of the things that I've gone over and over and over about. And I've gone over it specifically in relation to prostitution. I've tried to look at different aspects of prostitution from a personal perspective, from the perspective of different political positions, from the perspective of different social positions and different moral positions, to try to find out what the nuances are. And you're smoothing over all of these nuances and pretending this is a black and white argument about pro and anti, good and bad, liberty and captivity and legislation. And it really isn't. And I deeply resent the fact that you use my footage to construct that argument. I think it's crap, really, just really crap. Yeah, I'd also invite you to some of the language around it. I'm not sure if this refers to me or not. It might. It seemed to, because you said this in very close proximity to when you showed a clip of my videos. You suggested that there was some kind of moral underpinnings to some of these ideas. Certainly some of my ideas, or sexual hang-ups. In fact, I think you used the phrase sexual hang-ups just before you showed one of my clips, as if the motivation for this stuff is to do with sexual hang-ups and morality. I just invite you to look through my videos, and I don't know, as again I wouldn't want to speak for anyone else, and see if you can find anywhere where I make a moral argument against prostitution, sex work, or anything like that, where there is any indication, simply because I don't have that moral position. I mean, if you want to look through my videos, you will find very clearly articulated my own experiences, my own knowledge, and my relationships to that industry and to people who work closely allied to that industry. So I have I'm sure I do have moral hang-ups, but I certainly don't have the moral hang-ups you seem to be pinning on me. I'd also invite you to see if you can find anywhere I've made any kind of derogatory remark or used any kind of derogatory language about prostitutes and sex workers. There have been a lot of derogatory remarks, and there is language being used by people on what you might call your side of the fence there, Peach. Some people who claim to be sex positive, and some people who claim to be working for greater freedoms for prostitutes and better regulation of the industry. I've heard them use very derogatory language, which I would steer well away from. I would invite you to try and find any of that in my videos. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say. Well, the last thing really, and this is a bit of a frustration and a disappointment. I read your comments on your video last night, and I have to say I came away with that really disappointed, not just in yourself, Peach, but in the human race. Several reasons. I mean, obviously, there's one or two references to myself in there, clearly made by people whose only contact with any of my videos has been the 15 seconds that you cherry-picked, and basically just telling me how stupid I was for having those opinions which you've ascribed to me and which I do not hold. So that was a little bit disappointing, but I can live with that. This is YouTube. I don't care about those people. But what I found most disappointing, and this is not specifically aimed at you, Peach, this is a kind of general malaise, I think, is how many people, having watched 21 minutes of you, actually about 16 minutes of you and then 5 minutes of sex workers in their own words at the end, having done that, we're able to say, well, now I've made my mind up. You've really convinced me. This is an unassailable argument. Wow, I used to think this and now I think that. These are people who, having watched 20 minutes of a YouTube video, have made their mind up on a complex argument that has tested the legal brains of every country on earth for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and will continue to do so. So, you know, that is just sad, isn't it? I mean, I hope you would agree with that on that Peach. I hope you would agree that that nobody should be able to make their minds up about anything having watched 20 minutes of a YouTube video. Really. I mean, what does that say about the human race and our ability to swallow crap? Yeah, on a more positive note, I thought the stuff you said about Nevada was good. I think, you know, a couple of more specific, detailed videos looking at the details of how legislation might work, perhaps using Nevada as an example, I think that would be really useful. I thought the inclusion of sex workers in their own words at the end was useful. That's a very valuable voice. The rest of it is polemicising, and not only that, but cheap and, in my opinion, dishonest polemicising. You can do better than that, Peach, and you really should.